Hello everyone and welcome to a new video. In today's video, we are going to be looking at an overview of web development. It means we'll be looking at things like what HTML is, CSS, JavaScript, and different other components that make up the web. If you're a total beginner, you don't know nothing about web development and you want to get started in this career, then this video is for you. So without further ado, let's get into my slide that I've prepared and let's start talking about it. Join me. Now, a quick reminder to like, share, and subscribe to this channel to help YouTube recommend it to other people. Please comment below because it kind of helps the algorithm and the things around it. Let's get started right now. So yeah, an overview of web development, what it is, and what does it involve? How do you get started? Let's look at this with these slides and let me get you from that point of I want to start and I know nothing to the point of, oh yeah, I know exactly how to begin and where to go from here. Let's go. The concept of web development. Well, the concept of web development is simple. It involves the creating and maintenance of websites and web applications. Some examples of websites include google.com, spearcode.com, frontendmentorship.com, which is my mentorship program, which is on a pause right now, but I'm coming back with something huge for you guys soon. So just wait for that. So web development is simple. It involves the skill in creating of websites, web application, and these things around it, creating and maintenance of websites and web applications. But we are going to move from here to what it entails and different things around it. First of all, how are websites created? We have two main ways websites are created. We have the website builders and we have the writing code method. Now, with the website builders, you have things like WordPress, Wix, Shopify, and with writing code, you use things like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, advanced coding frameworks, languages, libraries, and tools. Because these things, or when to use these things, we don't know when to use, website builders like Wix, WordPress, and when to actually write code. We'll look at the difference between the both of them and when to use them. Now, the first difference you would notice is that the first option, which are website builders, you do not really need to know how to write code to build websites like that. And the second one is the one we are really interested in for this guide, and you require the ability to write code, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and advanced things after moving up from there. So let's continue. Let's look at questions to tackle. When do you need to use website builders? When do you need to learn how to actually code? Why should you consider coding and web development as a skill for you? The first one is, when do you need to use website builders? Now, using website builders aren't really a bad thing. You could use website builders to create your websites depending on your need. Maybe you're here in this video because you just want a simple e-commerce store to sell products. Now, could you go to the extent of creating the website on your own with custom coding tools? Yes, you could. But these days, there are available tools to use to do that. We have WordPress out there, we have Wix out there, we have other platforms that allow you to do these things easily, right, without requiring knowledge of code or learning how to write code yourself. So you need to use website builders when you're basically when they could basically meet your needs of doing simple things and fulfilling simple tasks. Website builders are the best for those kind of things. Could you do it custom made? Yes, you could, but these tools would help you, especially if you're in the earlier stage and you don't have much money to finance a huge application for, say, your e-commerce project or other projects like that. The second one is, when do you need to learn how to actually code? If you want to work for a company as a software engineer, you need to learn how to code. Of course, you can't use Wix and WordPress except the company is specifically hiring for that. But if we are looking at the typical tech roles, then you need to learn how to code for those kind of roles. Secondly, you need custom websites, custom applications when you want to go beyond the limit of platforms like Wix, WordPress, etc., what they give you. Now, you should know that these platforms have constraints and have limits to the extent you could customize them. And if you want something that won't have those limits but use exactly what you want, then you would need to have a custom website or a custom web application built by developers, or you just become one, and after so many months of practice or years, you're able to build what you want, which is cool. Why should you consider coding and web development as a skill for you? Now, this question is a super important question, and I would say everyone do not have to be a software engineer. If you're here and you want to be in tech, there are also other places in tech that you could belong to and would fit you. We have product management, we have product design, we have different aspects like this. We have the SRE, right? Site reliability engineers. We have the DevRel. We have just different areas, right? So why should you consider this question? Should really be, why should you consider tech in general as a career path for you? And that is because it's a high income skill. It's a skill, especially with web development and writing code. It's a skill with a low entry barrier. By low entry barrier, I mean you don't require much gadgets to get started in, unlike things like if you're doing let's say robotics or some other fields, right? You require a lot of equipment, but here you just need a functioning website and that's able to, let's say, carry a browser and a coding application, right, like VS Code and IDE to get started. Once you have that, you can begin. So it's a low entry skill and it's a high income reward skill, but it takes time to learn. So let's continue. Getting started with web development. Basic things you need to get started with web development today. Number one, we are going to talk about the internet. Yes, so this is something that most people neglect, and this is something that most people do not pay attention to and most people don't realize on time. But the internet is one of the most fundamental things you need to get started in tech. The internet, I'm not just talking from the angle of being on the internet to meet more people, but I'm talking of being on the internet because the internet gives you ability, and the internet gives you it gives you the Superman ability to learn things from people who you have never met in your life before. So you could basically go on the internet and you'll find many free resources to get started with web development, get started with writing code, and you would meet amazing people there. You could get your questions answered and different other things you need. I never went to an official coding boot camp, right? And I didn't learn most of my knowledge from the four walls of a university or a tertiary institution. But the good thing is that I do not really claim to be self-taught, because self-taught kind of sounds like no one taught you and you just figured everything out on your own. For me, I learned from people on the internet. I watched videos, articles, tutorials, got my questions answered on Stack Overflow, GitHub, and from peers around when I started to make friends in tech. So the internet is a really important place to meet people and you should leverage on it. Now, we'll talk about two parts of web development, and we are going to talk about these two parts exclusively for this introduction. There are probably other parts inside of these parts, but we are going to just discuss these two as a block, and that is front-end web development and back-end web development. What is front-end web development? That part of the website you see, the colors, text, images, animations, and other visual elements you see on the screen. Do you know that part? Now, that part is called the front end. Literally everywhere you see on the screen, literally everything you are seeing as a user who comes to a website. Let's say you open facebook.com, everything you see on facebook.com is the front end. Now, the front end is built with tools like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and it's usually the part that is really important for the user, right? Because it's the part you're interacting with. So the front end is an important place to get started if you want, because it has, number one, like I mentioned, it has a low entry barrier, and number two, you're getting instant gratification for the work you're putting out. If you change a color, you're seeing the result of the color you just changed. If you add an image, you're seeing the image. It helps you in creativity. So if you feel like you're that kind of person who likes to be creative with designs and build something really pleasing, then you should go for the front end and get started there. Let's talk about three technologies involved in the front end. We have HTML, we have CSS, we have JavaScript. Now, the next thing we'll talk about what HTML is. HTML means hypertext markup language. A markup language is a system of annotating documents in a way that is syntactically distinguishable from the text, meaning when the document is processed for display, the markup language is not shown and is only used to format the text. Yeah, so a markup language is not shown at the end result, but the markup language is used to tell the text how to behave. Have you gone on web pages and you see a text display bigger than the other one? You see a text is bolder than the rest of the text. You see a text is written in italics. You see a text is written and is underlined. You know, different things that happen on the web page is controlled by the markup language. So at the end result, you're just seeing the big text. When writing the code, we are not necessarily seeing a big text, but we are putting it in something that at the end it would make it appear to be big. So markup languages are made up of tags and all of that help you, semantically make the website how you want it to use. HTML is used to define the structure of the page. Think of it like the skeleton of every website you see out there. Every website has an HTML file with them. So HTML is super important in the web development space and is something you cannot do without if you're learning front end. A breakdown of the HTML attributes, the HTML tag. Let's look at it. We have the href right here. We have the href, which is an attribute name. This is an example of a HTML tag, by the way. So we have the attribute name, we have the attributes, right? We have the enclosed content, we have the closing tag, and this is the breakdown of HTML. Now, this is the element. An element is made up of the opening tag, the closing tag, and the content inside of it. So this is a brief overview of what an HTML tag looks like. Yeah. Let's look at CSS. CSS means cascading style sheet. Think of CSS like the covering of HTML with a beautiful body and designer clothes. Cool, right? Now, CSS helps you style your HTML in the proper way. So think about the colors you see on the screen. Think about places on websites where you see that they have slanted edges and they are just cool. Let's say some animations on the web pages too could be controlled by CSS these days. Mainly uses JavaScript for complex animations, but CSS could help you do some simple animations and transitions. So basically, CSS is the designer clothes. CSS is the skin, right? What if we compared HTML with the body, right, the skeleton, then we'll say CSS is more like the skin and the clothing, making it beautiful. First, the structure is there to define this, because imagine just saying skin and clothing, it wouldn't have any shape or form without the HTML. So the HTML controls the structure, the skeleton of the web page, how it is arranged, and the CSS controls the styling, the beautification, making it easier for readers to interact with, read, learn. Again, CSS is really important in web development, and you can't really do web development, front-end web development, without learning the CSS. So let's move forward with this. This is what the CSS tag looks like. So first of all, we have the selector right here, and then we have declarations put in curly braces. So for the declarations, we have two parts of each declaration. We have the property and we have the value. Here in this example, you see we are styling the h1 tag. The h1 tag is a header tag. Remember those headings and subheadings which are bolder that we talked about? This is the tag in HTML to make that possible. So we have the styling for this header tag, and we are saying let the color of the text be blue and let the font size be 12 pixels. This is simply what HTML and CSS is. With HTML, you're declaring the structure, the skeleton. With CSS, you're giving it more styling like colors, font sizes, and the rest of these things. Let's move forward. We have types of CSS. First type of CSS we'll discuss is the inline CSS. What's the inline CSS? The inline CSS is directly applied to the HTML file, right? Inside of the HTML tag when you declare it. The inline CSS is an attribute inside of the HTML tag. We are really not going to look at these things in detail since we are doing an overview, but I hope you get something with how the structure of these things behave and how they work. So we have the inline CSS, and that is style. It's inside of a style attribute, and here the same thing we did with this one. We could come here to say style is equal to, and inside of quotes we have color blue, and this would still make this paragraph tag blue. Next, we have the internal CSS. The internal CSS is still defined in the HTML file, but this time around it's not defined inside of a tag. It's defined inside of the style tag, which is specifically for the stylings, and inside of that we can now write it like as though it was an external one. The last one is the external CSS. It is connected to the HTML file, but it's a different style or is a different file altogether. The external CSS is the most recommended way to style a website, because with the external CSS, you're kind of separating the contents between the HTML file and the CSS file, and that way you're getting separation of contents, and you're able to identify where is what. Plus, you're able to even do more things when it is external than when it is internal, and it gets confusing internally. So stick with external when you get started. Next, we are going to look at JavaScript. JavaScript, among everything mentioned here, is the first programming language we are discussing. Now, this doesn't mean that HTML or CSS is inferior to JavaScript. It just means that JavaScript is the actual programming language we are discussing here. Remember, programming languages are languages that understand logic, could reason logically, and be able to provide outputs for you. With HTML, as we mentioned, HTML is a markup language. CSS means cascading style sheet. It's a style sheet for the markup language. But JavaScript is not limited to front end. It could be used on the back end. It could be used for other types of tech fields, programming fields, including machine learning, artificial intelligence, robotics, and name them. JavaScript is a programming language that could be used everywhere. HTML and CSS are compulsory for every single website. JavaScript is not compulsory for every website, but it helps to add interactivity to the web page. So with JavaScript, you could add more interactivity, like some custom animations. Those animations you see on a page when you start scrolling and something reveals itself while you scroll, and the rest of things, complex animations like that. You're basically using JavaScript to track where the user is on the web page at that particular time, and you're starting the animation at that moment. So pretty cool things you could do with JavaScript, calculating logic and all of that. After websites are created, let's discuss what happens, because now we've discussed how to create a website. We've looked at website builders, we've looked at HTML, CSS, JavaScript, how to create websites in a custom manner. Let's discuss what happens after the website is created. So where are they kept? So how are they accessed online? Hosting. So after websites are created, they are hosted on the web and can be accessed online. So once it is created, it's hosted on the internet. It's put on a hosting platform. A hosting platform is literally like a shared computer somewhere that exists in the world that's specially there to host these web pages, and people could basically access these web pages from these web servers. Where to learn HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, or web development in totality, including the backend and all of that. Where could you learn these things? Whether you're looking for paid or free content, there are a lot of amazing resources out there to get started in web development, and we are going to talk about a few of those resources today in this video. So stick with me if you want to see that. Amazing opportunities. We have Free Code Camp, we have Solo Learn, we have Scrimba. You could buy courses on Coursera, Udemy, Udacity, and all of that. By the end of 2 weeks, I'm going to pick a random subscriber in this channel, and I'm going to give the person a web development course from Udemy. So if you want to be that person, click on the subscribe button right now and leave a comment down below, and let's let's contribute to that, to the success of this channel. Do you have questions? If you have questions and you want to learn more about web development, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, you want to learn how these things work, you could reach out to me in the comment section and tell me a particular type of tutorial you want to see. I'll be releasing my next video later this week or next week, and in that video we are going to build a custom a custom web application with HTML and CSS. We are going to build a portfolio. So subscribe to this channel and turn up the notification bell if you want to see more of that. Please subscribe. It won't take you more than a second to click the subscribe button and turn up your notification bell so that YouTube will tell you every single time I drop a video, and you'll be here to be the first person to watch. I hope this has helped you and you've been able to understand an overview of what web development is, and now you'll be able to go further to start your journey in web development. See you some other time. Peace.